This is Jonathan, and in the following set of tutorials we're going to take a look at using Adobe Muse to create websites without code. Now, if you are a graphic designer, you're probably familiar with InDesign, and you know that InDesign is a fabulous application to help you create layouts for print as well as interactive documents. And it has a lot of robust tools because it's been in development for many years. Some of those tools we're very familiar with, such as master pages, the ability to create multiple pages as you need, and you'll see that we can also create columns and margins and deal with all that kind of stuff. We can also do paragraph styles and character styles and object styles and a lot of other things, even like text wrap. And what they've done is they've taken the same sort of design paradigm and made it work with a tool that allows you to design for the web. So let's get started on using Adobe Muse. Now the first thing that you're going to do is create a new site. Now the three initial layouts, desktop, tablet, right here, or phone. Now we're going to use desktop by default because we're not going to be doing responsive layouts or adaptive websites for this particular section. But I want to point out one thing about this, and that is that by default it gives you a page width of 960 pixels and a min height of 500. The min height will really depend upon what content you put in there. I also want you to be aware of the margins and the padding and the columns. Right now it's just one column, which is 920 pixels wide with a gutter that's 20 pixels. So if you hit OK, this is basically what you get. I'm going to double click on that page to see, whoops, I hid those, so let's show the guides. So this is what you should see if you do that. We've just got one column across, and then we've got this padding around it. That's our gutter. Now this is not typical for page layout. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new document with Control N, and we're going to set this up the way that we typically see websites nowadays. And what that's going to be using is what's called the 960 grid system. Now the 960 grid system can be found online, and if you look it up you'll find hundreds of samples of what it looks like, but the best place to learn about it is probably the 960.gs website, because that's kind of the de facto standard one right now. If you click on the custom CSS generator, you'll see an example of what the grid looks like. And here we've got our 12 columns in the darker green, and you'll see the padding in between them. That's that gutter. And you'll notice here that it's 20 pixels, but on the right and left of the entire set of columns, it's only 10 pixels. The reason why is because each column has a left and right margin of 10 pixels. That means that we get 10 pixels on the far right and 10 pixels on the far left, if I have it backwards. And then 20 pixels in between. And then if we have column width of 60 and 12 columns and a gutter width of 20, we have a content width of 940 and a full width of 960. Well, that's not the way it is set up here, because if we change this to 60 pixels for our column width, all of a sudden our page width changes to 980. So what we have to do is go to our margins and change this to 10 and 10. And once we've done that, now we will basically fit the typical 960 grid system. Now we've got some padding here we could adjust as well, but if we took that down to 0, it would be fine, but we can just do that afterwards as well. So I'll keep it on the 36. Hit OK. Now that we've just created this simple website, I'm going to double click on that home page and just take a quick look at it. Here you'll see that grid system in action, and then we've got these two bars, and the two bars are actually the header section, and this is the footer section, and then the space above is my margin, or the padding, I guess, before the content, and the same thing down there, that's the padding, the page padding. So what I'm going to do is actually close the original thing, and I'm going to keep the new design that we just set up that has the 12 columns. And before we do anything, let's go ahead and save this site. So I'm going to save over my original one, but I'm just going to call it sample site, and we're going to go on. Now we've got a home page right now, and what we're going to do is add some different pages. So this is going to be about, and then this is going to be services, and this is going to be contact. If you're one of my students, you're saying, well, what happened to the products page? Well, I'm just going to do one less page. Now, with services, we can add some other pages. So I'm going to call this services 1, or even just service 1. That would probably be better. I'm going to do another one, service 2. And you'll see we can add more pages if we want. Now, if we want to collapse those pages, we can just click on the little double arrow, and you'll see that now it shows that that is a page that has multiple pages, but I'm not seeing them right now. Now, this is in what's called the plan view, which allows us to kind of create a visual map of our website. It's very, very cool. One of the things that you'll see down here is the master page. If I click on that master page or double click on it, what we're going to do is edit some features about this. So I'm going to take that first bar up to the top, collapsing the padding before the content. And that way, what will happen is the content will go all the way to the top. I'm also going to move this header down to about 200 pixels. Now, I can move the footer down as well if I want to. So I'm not going to be too picky about where I move it exactly. But I'm going to keep a little bit of that padding in there for right now. It doesn't really matter too much. Now what I'm going to do is add another object. And so we're going to go to the rectangle tool and create just a simple rectangle. With this rectangle, let's change the fill to a color. And I'm just using the standard colors that are in here, but of course we would change these to our own colors, or bring in our own swatches when we're really designing something. Once I've created that, I can go back to the black arrow, and because I'll be able to duplicate it when I need another one. So I'm going to take the stroke width down to 0, and I usually like to just go ahead and remove the stroke as well so there's no confusion. And I'm going to move this box up to the top here and stretch it across. Now I want you to notice the numbers that we get here in the far right hand corner. When I'm dragging that item, it will show you what the current size of that box is. So 960 pixels by 200. That works out quite well because now I know it's really fitting that header section correctly. Now I'm going to duplicate this with Control C and then Control V, and I'm going to move this down to the footer item. Now notice that I can't move below that, which is kind of annoying. I really wish I could. So that's why I wanted to show you that particular item. Here's where if we need that to go down to the bottom, we need to collapse the padding at the bottom of the page so that this would go down. Now you'll notice that this pushes down the entire page, and so this will set up a default for other pages coming up, just so you know. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to stretch it across because what I'd really like to do is make that fit. Now the problem is that this is actually just going to make this image the width that we're physically making it. Instead, I'm going to click on this button up here, which is 100% width, and that will force that to go all the way across. Now I'm also going to take this and snap it up to that bar for the footer, and we may see that that works or may not work, and we'll see that in a minute. So now what I'm going to do is change that to a darker color, and let's add one other little item real quick. I'm going to do a real quick box up here at the top, and that's going to be like if we had a logo up here, and I'm going to change that to maybe white. So that might be our logo if we had one in this particular design. Maybe I'll do that just so it kind of looks like it's kind of cool going into the white here. And let's go ahead and close that, and you'll notice that all the other pages now has that particular master page used. Now what we're ready to do is save this site again, just to make sure that that's ready. And I think we have time. So last thing we're going to do is create one quick library item. If we go down to the widgets library and go to menus horizontal, we can drag out a horizontal menu and stretch this across our design, and this will be the different pages that we have. I'm not going to stretch it all the way across because it'd be really large, but you'll see this particular menu item is going to show all my top level pages, and you can see that with the little menu item settings there. And then as we go to the different pages, you'll now see that you can see that change up the top. And in the next tutorial, we're going to change the colors of this a little bit more and do a little bit more with our page.